Welcome to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee, Tuesday, April 1. Okay, someone's going to say it. Go ahead. April Fools. To the Board of Public Works, Edward R. Roybal hearing room. We have several items here, and let's take care of the continued items to make sure we respect your time here. Item number 1 will be continued for 1 week. Item 3 will continue to May 6th in Plum and May 27th in Council. Item number 5 will continue to Plum on April 8th, Council April 22nd. Number 7, we do not have a report. And so that gets us to, let's do this. I know the Director Goldberg is here. Maybe we can get to your report first, so that way I know you're very, very busy as well. You can hear your report, that way we can go on with the agenda from there.
Thank you very much.
Sit right in there.
Thank you very much. I have 3 things I'd like to briefly talk about today. The housing element, our new urban design principles effort, and I'd like to briefly talk about the 12-to-2 proposal that you may have been hearing about over the last week. So let me begin by telling you that the draft of the new housing element update has been released for public review. There is a copy of the draft on the Planning Department website under the What's New section, along with a flyer that is announcing workshops that will be held in each of the Area Planning Commission areas in the month of April. So we are scheduling 7 public meetings, and you can find the dates, the times, and the locations on the Planning Department website. There is also on the website a 12-page executive summary, which I would urge everyone to go and read. And we are looking forward to the public comments and to moving this forward. We have had a really terrific effort, a task force of more than 100 very active participants who have helped us work on this. So we're very proud of the effort and hope everyone will take the opportunity to look at the draft and to comment on it. I also wanted to mention that our urban design studio has been working over the past number of months with members of the AIA and a small subcommittee of our City Planning Commission to look at citywide urban design principles that ultimately could be placed in our framework element of our general plan. And we are using these urban design principles as sort of a framework to help direct urban design chapters in each of our community plans. We want very much to begin talking about the specific neighborhood characteristics, the scale, the character of the communities, and make certain that part of our planning process really addresses keeping our neighborhoods and communities with the special character that everyone, I think, identifies so much with. These principles were first introduced about a month ago to the planning deputies. As you know, we meet on a quarterly basis with all of the planning deputies, so we have gone over them with the planning deputies. We're going to continue working on them, and we hope to take them to the Planning Commission in the summer, and we're looking forward to being to Plum by fall to talk to you about them as we move forward. But I think this is a really exciting effort that will really lead to principles in our community plans that many communities feel have been really missing from the public dialogue for a number of years.
And Director Goldberg, there's been a real effort for many stakeholders to look at their specific plans. I, for one, know we have the obligation and desire to save and preserve our neighborhoods. So do these principles, do they parallel or reflect how these specific plans call out those unique characteristics of these neighborhoods? Because we sometimes get pushback and we're told you keep implementing one size fits all when the city is not like that. I know we don't, but I want to make sure, I want to understand, did we honor and respect the work these specific plans are doing, and do these principles reflect that?
Well, I think that you are correct to assume that it is more likely that a specific plan will have within it some design standards or some design direction for either the community or the corridor that it covers. And in fact, one of the most popular things we can do in any community is to talk about a community design overlay. Communities are very interested in urban design. What we're looking at is to create a set of generalized principles that would go into the framework that would apply citywide, but very broad and general. And then within each community plan, we would tailor the design principles to meet the needs of the community, because every community is different. And in fact, our communities are so large that within the communities are diverse neighborhoods, each exhibiting a different urban design sort of character or scale. And so we want to get down to literally the neighborhood level in the community plan, so that we not only are protecting what is special about neighborhoods, but we make sure that new development that comes in is respectful of that scale and of that character. And frankly, we have not done a good job in previous community plans of addressing those kinds of issues. So that's a major focus for us.
And it will open up the question, it will create, I'm hoping, the ability to answer the question, where will housing go?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. The last thing that I wanted to mention is that many of you probably noted that last week the mayor held a press conference to talk about a new initiative that he was directing many city departments to engage in, and this new process is called 12 to 2. And this is, for me, a natural progression of do real planning, but it is in fact development processing reform. And I want to express that the two major areas of concern for all of us, for the community, the neighborhoods, and the developers, are that two things happen in the case processing system that are very distressing. One is that 12 different departments review projects, and they are often guided not by the citywide plans, the general plan, and the community plan that should direct the physical development of the city, but they are guided by department practices, policies, and sometimes ordinances that direct them in a certain direction. But we often, in the review of projects, get conflicting conditions placed on projects that do not make for the best project and certainly do not make for the most timely process. The other problem that we have in this city is that often projects are actually approved and conditions are placed on the projects after the approval that do change often the urban design, the character of the design of projects. So often we hear neighborhoods going, how did that project get built? It doesn't look like the project that we supported or we approved. Right. And often that is because we allow projects to go forward with conditions that say, to the satisfaction of a certain department, and often to the satisfaction of imposes some new condition that changes the entire design of a project. So the intent is to resolve the differences that we have in terms of our objectives and to get all of the departments involved in the planning, in the community plans, so that we get those policies into the plans and it's actually the plans that direct the projects. This is good for neighborhoods. And we also want to make certain that the project that the neighborhood looks at or the project that you look at really reflects what it is that we expect to have built. So that's the intent of 12 to 2. We had our first meeting today. It's going to take us a while to work through our issues, but I will keep you apprised of how that is going.
Great. Well, thank you for that report. Councilmember, any questions from our director?
Yeah, and I think I support the 12 to 2. I think it's going to help us with a lot of confusion, et cetera. But there may be some that say that's going to make it easier and quicker to go by without the accountability and transparency that needs to happen to ensure that projects and plans are looked at with sufficient time and care so that we're not making bad decisions or overdeveloping in areas that shouldn't be developed. How would you answer those
Well,
concerns?
I would answer it in two ways. One, I would say that what 12 to 2 does is bring transparency to a system that is not transparent right now. If you are reviewing projects, if the community are reviewing projects that do not have specific conditions placed on them that can change the entire nature of the project, then it's not very transparent. Community should be reviewing the project that we actually think is being built. So I think the system right now is less transparent than what we are talking about in the future. And while from my perspective, this is a more valuable tool for the community probably than it is for developers, I will not apologize for trying to give developers in this city for the first time a state-mandated time frame that every other city provides. I mean, we have to recognize that the process in this city neither reflects the state-mandated timeframes. The only way you can get them in this city is to buy it through expedite, and that is not good enough, I think, for any of us. So I think that I'm willing to be open and say this is about saving time, but my idea of saving time, council member, is to save time and allow smaller projects that have no ability to even be a part of this city's process to suddenly become viable. Those projects that are expensive or big can survive the risk and the time of the process in this city. But we have to open it up for the smaller projects, the more affordable projects. They have to be able to play in the city of Los Angeles also. And I think that that's what 12 to 2 will do. Open up our process to small developers who can better do projects that fit into the intricate sort of infill situation that we see in this city. So I think that this brings transparency, and I think this is good for neighborhoods.
Great. Thank you, Director Goldberg. Appreciate your time and the attention you're giving to these matters and trying to make our city that much more livable and process more transparent. So thank you. On item number 2, Councilman, perhaps we can move this on the consent calendar unless you had any questions. Councilmember?
Sure.
I'm sorry, number 2, we can move on that consent?
Yeah,
okay.
second.
So we'll move the item number 2 on consent. It's been seconded by Councilman Huizar. And that brings us to, Roberto?
Item number 4, Councilman. It's a CEQA appeal by Daniel Wright on behalf of the Mount Washington Homeowners Alliance, and he's appealing the adoption of the MND for 7 single-family dwellings in CD 14.
Okay, can we have the staff report on this item, please?
Good Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jose Carlos Romero. I'm a city planner for the Northeast area. Before you, we have an appeal from the decision of the East LA Area Planning Commission on on the approval of 7 contiguous lots, project permits by the Director of Planning. There was a public meeting by the East LA Area Planning Commission held on July 25th, 2007. The meeting had some variations because this is a rather large project. 7 contiguous lots is not something we have as a common project in Mount Washington. We have many projects, but those are individual lots. The appeal had to do particularly with environmental elements. The appellant challenged the environmental assessment, the mitigating negative declaration. The appellant also challenged some of the approval elements pertaining to the specific plan. The Area Planning Commission acted on this appeal, denied the appeal, and before you is only the environmental element of the project. I should mention, I believe there will be a request for continuance, right? So I was going to expound my presentation, but I let someone from the applicant side to make this request. Actually, from the city building and safety.
So let's be real clear. The person speaking is city personnel from building and safety.
Yeah, building and
not
safety.
The applicant.
It's not the applicant. Okay, thanks.
Dave Lara with Building and Safety. I'm basically here to answer any questions that the members of this committee may have relative to the MND as it relates to the grading issues.
Councilor, if you want to ask questions or want to go through the whole presentation and ask them to come back and ask questions later, it's up to you.
Let's go through the whole presentation, then ask
Okay.
some questions at the end.
Okay. So why don't you hang on tight? We'll go through the public comment, and we'll go through the hearing, and then we'll be asking questions. So I'd like to ask the appellant, I believe Daniel Wright, from Mount Washington Homeowners Alliance, to come on up.
Given your light agenda today, is it possible that we could have more than 2 minutes?
Yes, the appellant, you can have more than 2 minutes.
Okay. If you want a ballpark figure, like 4 or 5 minutes, is that too much?
How about 5?
Okay, I will endeavor to keep it within that time period.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Wright, appellant for the Mount Washington Homeowners Alliance, and Mike and Dee Mullet, immediate neighbors above the subject property. Let us begin with the understanding that the Alliance could support this project if you would exercise your discretion today and require that the developer or ask him to agree to use either soldier pile or drilled caisson construction methods on the upper retaining wall as a condition of project approvals. This is the deal breaker for us. If we cannot obtain reassurance that this common sense requirement is imposed as a condition of this project approval, we are prepared to legally challenge the MND, which has many, 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 many deficiencies well documented in the record. Let the record reflect that I am submitting the report of our expert on noise, who has measured the ambient noise levels at the project site and has concluded that the city's noise ordinance will be frequently exceeded due to the construction noise, and the MND currently states that there is no impact to noise at all. The additive impact of noise from construction will exceed the thresholds of significance because we're building 7 houses together at the same site. And therefore, the record now has substantial expert evidence establishing this deficiency of the environmental document. Additionally, after circulation of the MND and at the time of the hearing at the East LA Planning Commission, and I'm very disappointed that the staff presentation was cut short because they did not tell you about the changes to the project, so I'd encourage you to ask them lots of questions about this. It wasn't until this came before the East LA Planning Commission that it was announced that the city is now requiring a 5-foot setback of this project. And the entire 7-house project is going to be moved into the hillside. And as a result, the lower retaining wall will no longer be kept or rehabilitated, but it will be taken down and rebuilt. This generates a lot more soil excavation and removal, none of which has been analyzed in any kind of subsequently circulated environmental document. Common sense tells you that hundreds of more cubic yards will be required for excavation and export, and additional remedial grading will be required. One of our speakers today will give to you a color diary compiled by a neighbor, which was put together when this property was originally excavated extensively and these deficient retaining walls constructed in the 1990s. And I encourage you to take a look or leaf through some of those photos to see just how much the soil was disturbed. Because the MND in front of you only identifies the amount of soil that's going to be excavated for each pad, and it does not take into account all the remedial grading that will be necessary to get these pads excavated down to the bedrock and compacted back up to whatever level the construction will take place. These are all significant impacts in terms of additional fugitive dust and construction impacts on people immediately across the street, one neighbor of whom has severe asthma. We have neighbors here who are very elderly. You're going to receive today a statement from one elderly couple who could not come because they have a doctor's appointment. And some of us who are board members of the Mount Washington Homeowners Alliance are here today, but many people could not be here today because they work. Finally, I'd like to point out that the dialogue with this developer so far has been disturbing in that despite what we believe to be very legitimate environmental concerns about the need for protecting on this unusual site with this troubled geologic history of adverse bedding plains and a history of extensive disturbing of the soils, he has refused to work with us or agree to this reasonable condition. In fact, what normally happens is he comes to hearings and simply calls us all racist. This is not a productive dialogue, and I hope that if that happens today, you'll take it for what it's worth. There is a way out here. We would not like to have to legally challenge this mitigated deck, and the way to do it is to look at adding reasonable conditions having to do with the construction method for the upper wall, aesthetic improvements that you'll hear about, and noise requirements. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Our next speakers, Godwin Ewens.
My name is Godwin Iwunze. This is an ongoing, continuous problem with Mr. Wright. There's nothing new that he's bringing up today that he has not brought up in the past. An extensive hearing was conducted at the Area Planning Commission. At that hearing, we brought our engineers, the soil geologists, the new grading plan that we had. He says he supports the project, but he doesn't understand exactly what the blueprint calls for, what is happening there. There's going to be soldier piles to support the walls. There are two walls there now. One of the walls, the city, permitting agency, at the city, the plan checker requested and the engineer requested that we demo the first wall and leave the back wall and reinforce it, So these are the things we've taken real strong measures to counter whatever the measures that the MND calls for. So this same issue was raised when I built eight houses on Parish. The same group of people, amongst them, waged a war against me. All the way, they filed a lawsuit. This is a lawsuit. The same issue that he is bringing up today about MND was brought up at the lawsuit, and it was denied. They threw the lawsuit. We won the case. There's nothing this man is doing other than a deliberate attempt to cost me money, to waste money in this project. We have lost. We've been trying to build house here on this project for almost 3.5 years. We went in there when the market was fine. We went into Parish when the market was fine. Right now, we're losing our ass on Parish. We're going to lose our ass on Cleveland because of this agency. So we don't even want to come near Mount Washington. 14th District, when I'm on that freeway, I don't even look left anymore because of the disaster that this man has caused. There's no Mount Washington group here opposing us. I've been to their meeting. I have elucidated what we're going to do on this project. A lot of them bought it. Why this man is fighting the city, I don't know. We're caught in the middle. If he doesn't have anything productive to do, let him find something productive or find somebody to fight. This is not 7 houses is nothing to fight. We've taken precautionary measure to make sure everything is safe. So please, in the name of just fairness, we're going to be repeating the same thing we went through on Parish, denying this request. Here, this is a court case. That was, Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Robert, can we get the clock back to 2 minutes, please? The following folks, we have Catriona Sims, and then we'll have Neil Smith, and then we'll have Peter Parrish, then finally Cheryl Roberts, and that'll close the public hearing.
Good afternoon. My name is Catriona Sims. I'd like to request a conditional condition on aesthetic grounds, given that the 7 homes represent the largest development in Mount Washington in the past 20 years.
I'm sorry, Ms. Sims, can you give us your address as well?
Sorry, 4207 Camino Real, LA 90065.
Thank you.
While I appreciate that the developer has made some attempts to vary the appearances of these 7 homes, they still look remarkably similar. And in keeping with the spirit of the Mount Washington's Glassell Park specific plan, I'd like to request that more variation in terms of entryway, staircases, maybe the landscaping be included in the plan, to avoid the cookie cutter tract home appearance that they have now. So that's the position that I wanted to take. And I also wanted to present a petition, not to read it, a petition from 17 residents in Mount Washington related to the safety of the homes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sims. Neil Smith?
I'm Neil Smith. I'm with Regional Housing Development. That's at 318 Hillcrest in Inglewood. I urge you to go against this appeal. The reason being is that competent city personnel have gone through this project extensively and done a lot of hard work. And looking over that would negate all the hard work that they've done and the experts that we've hired, primarily geologists, architects, and engineers. CEQA has been addressed in a number of hearings, actually previously as to traffic and other environmental factors on an adjoining project. All relevant concerns have actually been addressed on some similar projects, and we're just simply reiterating and digging up some same things that have already been looked at. Who suffers on this? The city resources are wasted. The developer is subject to needless delays and is bleeding financially. And with the neighborhood, what remains there is a hazard that needs to be mitigated immediately. And we hope that some meaningful dialogue can take place between the developer and the neighbors so that what's going on out there now can actually be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Peter Parrish and then Cheryl Roberts.
Before I start, I brought a declaration by Mr. and Mrs. Stewart,
Yes.
who are unable to attend, so I hope you all have copies of that.
It's right in front of us. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Peter Parrish. I live at 820 Cynthia Avenue on Mount Washington, 90065, and I've made copies of an article that was in the last two issues of the Boulevard Sentinel, which is a local newspaper, and I'd like to refer to this during my presentation. I'd like the folks here to understand three things. One, I'm for development of this area. It has been under almost continuous development since 1988. And it has been subject to very shoddy construction practices, and your predecessor, Councilmember Alatorre, actually shut it down. I think in about 1992. It's an extremely problematical area. It suffered landslides. It swallowed up one home completely during a landslide, caused another one to be condemned and torn down, and there's at least one building above this project that is suffering subsidence as we speak, cracked foundations, a settlement in the floor. I've attended just about every public hearing about this project, and I believe that it's extraordinary. It's probably the most problematical development that we have in the Northeast, and I think every
Mr. Parrish,
possible...
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
When you made reference to cracked foundations, are you
Yes, sir.
speaking to existing structures or structures that were there before and no longer?
Existing structures on Frida Drive, which is directly above the project itself.
Okay.
And presently occupied, as far as we can tell, that hasn't been yellow tagged or red tagged as of yet. So what we'd like to do is we'd like this project to go forward. It's an eyesore as it stands right now, but we want best available engineering and construction practices used. There's one retaining wall left that either has to be removed or remediated, and what we'd like to see is soldier piles or caissons. Mr. Owunsi in a public meeting promised soldier piles, but it appears now that he's withdrawn that stipulation, and so we're very concerned that if we don't use best available techniques, we'll have a revisitation of what we've seen in the past. And kind of to wrap it up, everybody's hardworking, everybody's doing their job. Throughout the city, about a mile and a half away, we've had a project within the last 2 months that has suffered severe damage. This is part of the geology of Mount Washington and Eagle Rock, and so if a project like this can fail, I think we should take particular care with one that we're talking about today that has shown repeated problems over the last 18 to 20 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to
Thank you.
also, one more thing.
Thank you.
This is a scrapbook that a couple has put together chronicling the problems of the project over the
Thank you,
last
sir.
20 years. And we'd like to loan it to you folks and get it back at the end of the hearing if I could.
Okay. Ms. Roberts?
I'd like to address several things. One
Give
is...
us your name and address, please.
I'm sorry, Cheryl Roberts, 217 Museum in Mount Washington. This project has been troubled for a long time. It's on it has a wall that was built about 18, 20 years ago that is sliding, that is falling, and there are houses above it that need fixing and have asked Mr. Owunsi, and ask him to promise to fix the wall. He can't do it until there's a permit on this project and can move forward. This whole hill is jeopardized by its being held up. It was supposed to have started construction last year and couldn't do it due to Mr. Wright's continued appeals, and we went through the whole rainy season and couldn't start. One of the other issues that was brought up today was the similarity of the siting of the projects. Well, all of the houses are architecturally different. There's a Spanish and a modern, and they're all different, but they are constrained by the Mount Washington plan, and they don't really have the option of moving around. They could have been moved around, but they can't be moved around because they have to fit into very specific setbacks that are set back by the Mount Washington plan. So this project has been through every geological, every engineering test. Originally, Mr. Wright had said he was going to stop it if both walls weren't taken down. Now he's saying that he's upset because both walls are being taken down and only one wall is going to be fixed. He wanted only one wall to be fixed. So he's changed his story to make it convenient to make appeals whenever something comes up. So I urge you to just approve this project and let it move forward because it's a necessary project. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, that concludes the public hearing. I'm sorry, not at this time. We'll listen to the report from staff. You come on up, and I believe we have some questions for you.
The appellant has claimed or has asked that we use solidar pile method of constructing retaining walls or the drilled caisson. What is the difference, and what is being proposed, and what standard do we use to determine which method is acceptable or not?
Dave Lara with Building and Safety. The standards for soldier piles or driven piles, there's different terminologies for these, and primarily just kind of giving you kind of Foundation 101 type of response. These are considered part of a foundation system, and the intent of these types of system is to make sure that they bypass any what we call alluvial fill or fill conditions that could be potentially unstable ground, and then they go into, depending on the type of engineering and how much soil that they're supporting, these piles then go directly into what we call bedrock, which is the stable type of soil that we wish to have supporting any structure, whether that's a retaining wall or a house or otherwise. And so those are primarily necessary in situations where you have hillsides that have what we call fill conditions. And those conditions they could have occurred over natural time, for example, historic landslides, different things like that may have occurred over time. And so once the soils engineer brings us the information based on his or her evaluation of the site, which is also handled through drilling of the site. They can drill down as much as 40 to 50 feet to determine what type of soil conditions exist. Then from that determination, the soils engineers will then move forward and come up with a recommendation. Now that recommendation may include soldier piles, it may include cast-in-place piles, caissons, different types of foundation systems like that. But it's up to Building and Safety to actually concur with that method of foundation system. And those standards then have to meet a minimum standards within our building code and within our grading code.
So whatever the engineering report of the developer proposes, you look at it from the building and safety perspective and agree or not agree that that's the appropriate method.
That's correct.
And what is being proposed here? What method is being used?
Unfortunately, I was just told of this particular issue this afternoon, so I have not personally had an opportunity to review this. I don't have any of the more detailed information behind the MND and what it actually means. It might be a good idea for our department to take in a full account of what this actually means and what's actually on the report, and then we can come back and report back to you.
Okay. I think that would be appropriate. I have some other questions, but in order for us to ensure that we're providing the utmost safety in the area, I think it would be good for us to have that full report come we discuss it, and that the Building and Safety Department ensures this committee and the public that we're doing its proper use, and that we won't see any homes in danger in the area. I'm very familiar with the area, and I too am concerned about the possibility of slides, of not having the grounded foundation in the area to support this. So this is certainly of something of utmost importance. 2 weeks? 1 week? When can you get that information and fully analyze it and provide a briefing to this committee?
I would say probably, and I would have to talk to my colleague, but I'd say safely a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks? Okay. The other issue raised by the appellant is that the community was not properly informed of that the retaining wall would be torn down and put back up again. Is that an issue that Building and Safety would be concerned about, the notice issue?
We would be concerned if the retaining wall that would be removed would not have some kind of temporary mitigation, at least until an actual new or permanent type structure would be involved. Any pre-existing retaining walls that are removed, we would want to make sure that there's some kind of mitigation in place under a permit generally to make sure that Building and Safety is aware and also verifies the conditions that exist, so that way no potential hazards exist.
Can you also report on that to the committee when you return, if you can, what methodology is being used to tear that down, keep the soil in place until the new one is put up, and see if that's a safe method to do that. And finally, in terms of noise, what mitigations are being used to mitigate noise if noise is an issue? The appellant here mentioned that, I think it was that the MND itself said there will be no noise. He has stated that there will be, and if there is, what mitigations will we have?
Charlie Roush, Planning Department staff. In doing mitigated negative declarations, the department normally has standard mitigations that kick in when grading impacts are marked off on the initial study. When that occurs, it triggers mitigations for sound, noise, and grading impacts. They are shown on the initial study checklist as Section 6B, but they also trigger mitigation measures in other areas, noise and air quality. In this particular case, though noise was not checked off as an impact, the noise impacts are listed as mitigation measures. They're just listed under the grading short-term construction impacts, but there are mitigation measures for noise listed in the mitigated negative declaration.
And which ones are those?
Project shall comply with the city's noise ordinance and any subsequent ordinances which prohibit the emission or creation of noise beyond certain levels. Construction and demolition shall be restricted to the hours of the noise ordinance, which are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday and 8 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday. Construction and demolition activities shall be scheduled so as to avoid operating several pieces of equipment simultaneously, which cause high noise level, which is an issue here because of the drilling which may be required and grading on the site. Contractor shall use power construction equipment with state-of-the-art noise shielding and muffling devices, and those are the basic standard mitigation measures that are triggered every time we have one of these projects.
Right, thank you. And Charlie, you've testified in this room before, right?
I certainly have.
I could tell you hold up the microphone really close to your mouth because we know how hard it is to hear in here, so thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Chairperson, I would suggest the main issue of concern to me as one committee member is the finding out if the methodology chosen for this retaining wall is the appropriate one, what decision process was undertaken to decide that, and to do a comparison with the appellant's recommendation that other methodologies be used, and secondly, that the proper methodologies being used when they shift the old retaining wall to the new one. And according to Building and Safety, they don't have that information today. They could have it in a couple of weeks. However, I am not present in a couple of weeks. I would like to be here for that since it is in my district. I'll be here on April 22nd, which is 3 weeks from now, if that's...
I want to make sure that all parties are in agreement. We can continue this till the third week of April. Is that a yes? Okay. Come on up to the microphone.
Well, there are two options, 1 week or 3 weeks, Mr. Lara. You need 2 weeks, right? Okay, so 3 weeks from now, that would be okay with you?
Councilmember,
April 22nd?
Councilmember,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
let me ask something, because I'm hearing you say that you have the information now,
Yes.
and that information could be relayed to the building and safety personnel?
Yeah,
Now, does that cut down on the amount of time you'll need?
Well, they have the information, Mr. Chair, but I think the issue is analysis of that information, which Building and Safety needs to conduct to appropriately answer our questions.
He is not the plan checker. I never met him before. It's maybe somebody that they brought in from Building and Safety. The plan checker and the grading, the soil guys have the information.
Yeah.
We've given them, they've
information is
approved the
they
method
need to
we've
analyze
designed to do the job.
3 weeks.
Okay, so given that we have to go through the analysis, we'll wait the 3 weeks?
Yeah, I'm assuming that everything's been submitted to Building and Safety. Now,
Right.
as to whether or not we've actually taken a look at it yet, that's a whole nother thing that I would have to verify. That's why I'm saying, if you give us a week, it may be a little
Tight.
for us, so
That's fine.
3 weeks would be helpful.
Both sides say fine with 3 weeks, we'll go with 3 weeks, Mr. Wright? Okay,
Okay, the matter is continued till April 22nd.
okay. So May 2nd is a target date? Is that correct?
April 22nd.
April 22nd. Okay, good. All right. April 22nd it is. At Plum, we'll have a response to the questions at hand. That'll be a continuing date. Roberto, any other items?
Public comment, Council.
Anybody here for public comment?
Yes, there's a card for public comment.
Okay, we have one card. Oh, it's hiding. Mr. Wright. No April Fool's jokes, okay?
I'll refrain. I will get close to the microphone. I will refrain from such jokes.
Okay.
Daniel Wright, 467 Crane Boulevard. I just wanted to bring to your attention that, as you are well aware, both of you, since you are from the Northeast, that wending its way towards City Council is the proposal of the Autry National Center for its expansion in Griffith Park and its potential impacts on the Southwest Museum. This would become within your jurisdiction because of requests for a conditional use permit as well as a height variance from the Hollywood plan. I wanted to make sure I bring to your attention that you were personally aware that the Friends of the Southwest Museum Coalition has just released a report prepared by a CPA and attorney, Mr. Jack Siegel of Chicago, who's an expert in nonprofit finance. The essential conclusions of that report are that for the last 8 years, the Autry has told the public that it has $100 million of endowment, when in fact it does not have such endowment. In fact, on the date of the merger, the Southwest Museum had more liquid assets than the Autry, which was perceived publicly by our city council and the public as being the financially superior entity. In fact, Mr. Siegel concludes that the merger balance sheet attached to the merger agreement and signed by Mrs. Autry and her board members was substantially misleading and not in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. In other words, the Autry did not tell the truth about its financial strength as a method of obtaining control over the assets of the Southwest Museum. And you have to ask yourself, when they say in the public now that they've raised $116 million, have they really done that? This city should be asking the Autry to disclose all pledges, and the controller should audit these books before you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wright. Anybody else here for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.